You are an embodiment of three code words: struggle, strive, and smile. And this is something that Psynaree also believes in.
I'd like to ask you that you've grown up in Prayagraj.
The Allahabad University has been considered as factory of civil servants, and it has been there so. But that time I didn't had that idea, nor I had that complete motivation to go for civil services.
And how do you see this concept of freedom to choose as a core of empowerment in terms of your mother, and how she has empowered you?
She has been one of the silent rebellion, women in the house who has brought us from Balia to Prayagraj. She was the one who used to ask me, "Your name is Shakti. Live up to that. Stand up. You are not that weak."
Hello and welcome to Psynaree, a platform where we try to bring about the stories of resilience, of determination, and of empowerment. Psynaree works on two dimensions: women empowerment and mental health. Both of these things are not only parallel, but also extremely important for a society which wants to progress and which wants to bring about the path of development. Today, we are extremely excited for our guest who fits in both of these dimensions. Somebody who is an empowered woman, and somebody whose mental health and happiness must be off the charts because of the success that she has garnered. We are very excited to welcome All India Rank 1 of UPSC CSE 2024, Shakti Dubey, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
We welcome you to our podcast, ma'am, and we're very, very excited to be having you here because we're not just going to talk about the general patterns of preparation, but we're also going to be seeking your insights in how we can actually work on our mental health as aspirants, as well as a gendered perspective, being a female aspirant and now a female topper of this prestigious examination. So we're very excited to have you here. And as you hail from Prayagraj, a city that is steeped in intellectual as well as cultural history. You were born into a family of service, your father in the police force, and your mother, I would say, a strong, silent, but a very, very stable pillar of support throughout, not just for you, but I'm sure for your family. And you've been a science scholar with a master's in biochemistry. And your shift to civil services, I'm sure it was not just a mere change of field. I'm sure that it must have been a deeper calling, and we would like to know about that as well. So, this episode is titled Resilience, Identity, and Reform, a woman's journey through the civil services maze. Because today, we don't just talk about how you topped the examination, but what it cost for you, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, as well as logistically, and what it changed for you, as well as what it can inspire us into. So, ma'am, I'd like to ask you that you've grown up in Prayagraj and you've studied at, two of the very prestigious universities of our state. What was the environment like at home and in the city that you've grown up in, as well as at the institutes that you've studied in? And how did that shape your sense of identity as well as purpose?
If I talk about a surrounding, I think it's a very clear indication of how we grow as a person. So initially, the entire personality that I reflect today is something I've got from my parents, that I've got from my mother, my father. Father has been into the police services. So he actually has seen this from very close, the public servants, the duty, the devotion, and that has always reflected in his work. If I give an example, best was the COVID times when dad was, one of the frontline workers and he has to be on field while we were also scared to let him go out of the home. That mental toll also that we used to take every day when he used to step out of home. That, sacrifices we used to make on every festival when he was on duty while we were at home waiting for him. All of that has basically taught us that how duty is over and above everything that my father has projected. Then comes the role of my mother, who being one of the most, silent supporter to and is the backbone of our family, be it dad, be it us. All of us has basically, we have stood on the path she built for us. She has been one of the silent rebellion, women in the house who has brought us from Balia to Prayagraj, who got us educated, who made sure that every dream that we see gets fulfilled. She's the one who has been there when I fell every time. She was the one who used to ask me, "Your name is Shakti. Live up to that. Stand up. You are not that weak." And that, support that you get continuously from the parents, that has shaped who I am. Talking about Prayagraj, since I have done my schooling from St. Mary's Convent, I've been there throughout from nursery to 12. Then I moved to Allahabad University and Banaras Hindu University. These universities have always been considered, like the Allahabad University has been considered as factory of civil servants, and it has been there so. But that time I didn't had that idea, nor I had that complete motivation to go for civil services. However, there I spent really good times preparing for my biochemistry. That helped me ace, one of the prestigious universities entrance exam, that was for BHU, Banaras Hindu University. All of that has played an important role because they gave me a perspective towards academics, how you can be academically good, and that discipline which was ingrained in those initial years helped me, to maintain that status in UPSC as well.
That is wonderful, ma'am. And as you said, the service values that were rooted very deeply in your family that have helped you to look at the bigger picture, the larger picture. And that is something that I think all of us, not just aspirants, but as human beings, all of us should be looking at, given the current circumstances also that we're going through as a nation. And yes, you talked about having a strong academic foundation in biochemistry. Just wanted a brief follow up on that. That you had to change your subjects, and it was a shift. I would say a considerable shift. So how did you navigate that? And what would you suggest aspirants to go for when it comes to selecting their optional or their how to go about the subjects?
If I talk about optional, it is a very important part of the mains because there are 2 papers, 250 each, so total of 500 marks that it will carry. They say that GS can help you get through the list, but optional help you get the rank that you need. So you have to be that thorough with the subject. I was basically a postgraduate in biochemistry, which is not a standalone optional that has been provided by UPSC. So I was going through those syllabus of those subjects that have been given, and I came across anthropology, which was having quite an overlap with the humanities along with the science part. But I don't know why I didn't develop that interest in it. So initially when I thought to go with anthropology, and because that interest lagged, I understood that optional is not just based on one parameter that I should have a background in that. There are several other deciding factors as well. First, you should have interest in the subject because optional is one जिसके साथ you have to spend considerable amount of time. I would say some 50% of your day has to go with the optional for until your prelims are near. Second thing, they should have a good overlap with the GS. Then this will help you, save time. And that's why I went with political science and international relations, which helped me in GS paper 2. I used it significantly in my ethics, in my essay. Then comes a third aspect, that is the material and the resources readily available or not? Do we have enough test series? Do we have enough institutes that are providing for that? So since all of these factors were like good to go with PSIR and my interest, of course, so that's why I went ahead with that.
That's wonderful, ma'am. Thank you for the insight.
2 things that you mentioned about how your family had an impact on you. Number 1 was your mother. So generally the perception is that working women are empowered. But women empowerment as a thing not only talks about women going out and working, but it generally talks about a very simple thing, freedom to choose.
Yeah.
If you want to stay back at home and take care of your family, that's your empowerment. And my empowerment could be completely different, that I want to go and take up a corporate job. So your mother, I think, is as empowered as anybody else. And that is the sense of empowerment that she instilled in you also. So how that thing was there, and how do you see this concept of freedom to choose as a core of empowerment in terms of your mother, and how she has empowered you in a way that you have got that confidence to navigate all the struggles that you face through the process, and the same kind of confidence that you'll take when you will join the services?
If we talk about my mother, she taught me that empowerment is basically about having that ability to create a path for yourself. Okay? That has nothing to do with having a job. That has nothing to do with, having a voice in the society. At times you can be silent and be able to create that path. And my mom has been one of that. She tells us a story. While dad was initial years, he was posted in Prayagraj. She was there in Balia only. So when he went back home, first question she said was, take me to Allahabad with you. So we were not born back then. So dad said, what will you go there? वो government quarters हैं, वहाँ पे कैसे रहोगी, छोटा सा है. And my mom asked just one thing, is there any good school there? So this was her first priority. And when dad mentioned, yes, there's a good school, she said, well, I'll live in that quarters. And we spent 18 years in that small quarters staying in Gurpur. But her priorities were very clear. Okay? She never made those big calls that I need to do this. Just simple thing, one thing at a time. School chahiye, schooling अच्छी हो गई. उसके बाद then she asked dad that we need to get them educated from a really good university. Though it was 24 kilometers away from my home, we used to daily do up and down. But still she was like, university has a name, it's a central, go there. So she taught me one thing. First is, do not make noise, work more. Second thing is, keep creating that path for yourself on which not just you are walking, but it creates, a hope for others as well. जैसे अभी we are getting calls from our, hometown Balia, and people are like, हमारी बेटी ने ऐसा किया, and we are inspired to send our daughters for that as well. तो ये एक जो था, ये proper जो भी empowerment that you're watching me sitting here and speaking, it's all my mom. So for me and for her also, she always said that women are emotionally very strong and they have that ability to bring changes even without being that rebellious, and something that she instilled in me. And I always knew that despite multiple failures that I was going through, if I was determined that why I'm doing this, there will be some or the other day that I'll succeed. Because for us, it was not about a career, it was not about a job. It was about that generational change we aspire to bring. Because from me being an IAS in a family of where girls are basically being, married off at a very earlier age, this is going to bring that change in the mindset of the society. So her ideology was that, and the peace now I see on her face is that, जो मैंने सोचा था वो हुआ. You are not the one I've created. I'll create many more girls to come in the years. And that is, I think, beautiful and very subtle way that she explained empowerment to us.
I mean, there are two dimensions here. One is that she was actively making choices.
Yes.
That, okay, I want my children to get educated from a very good institute.
Yes.
These are the choices that she is making,
Yes.
and those are the choices which have shaped you.
Yes.
Second thing, which is very common in Indian society, that mothers have to kind of silence societal voices also.
Yes.
If they start echoing it, it becomes even more difficult for the girl child.
Yes.
So that also takes a certain sense of resilience, that you are, not getting wavered by this whole thing, and you are taking a decision ki, okay, I am very sure what my daughter is doing and I am on her side. So how that resilience is something which is completely inspiring, and at the same time a very, very good stock of power, confidence and support. How was that thing for you?
Initially, when the result came and I was back home, she broke down into tears, recalling those years of things that she has kept within her. There were lots of things she used to hear, both my mother and father, because we have basically distanced ourselves from the family functions, from all those, social gatherings, because we were into the preparation. But they were the ones who had to go there. They had to listen a lot. But आज तक कभी we never got to hear कि पापा कह रहे हैं पढ़ना नहीं है, या यहाँ नहीं जाना, या mom is trying to say anything. They were the one who endured it all. And today when she was just explaining us what all she had to hear at that time. But then she said that confidence that I had on you all, because she knew that you were giving your best. And she also had that failure in account. She knew that I might fail. She knew that there can be chances that maybe after 6 attempts also, I don't get into the list. But the idea was to be that educationally empowered at a state where I have that ability to make decision for myself. That even if I'm not able to get into the list, I should be able to choose an alternate option for myself, and that should not be very, somebody dictating me that you should be doing this or you should be doing that or you should get married. It should be like what you feel good. So this year after mains, she allowed me to move to Delhi and be a mentor in an institute. So it was always that opening for her, that once you are educated, once you have that, freedom, so you will be able to make choices that suits your personality. So that kind of support I always had from my parents.
I mean, yours is a family of resilience. Your parents were taking in a lot of things, and you were taking in all the failures with a smile. Your father is in the services.
Yes.
So you must have grown up in a household where altruism and public service holds a very special kind of value.
Yes.
And as students of psychology, we understand that the kind of environment you grow up in shapes a lot of segment of your personality. So altruism as a value and public service as a value, how that has been a factor in you making this decision to go out in public life and serve people in whatever capacity you have, and how this desire and also the learnings that you must have seen through your father, you are, I guess, in much more experienced capacity as somebody else who doesn't have a person a family member in public services. You had one, and you have seen COVID time also, as you have mentioned. So you are taking in all those learnings also, and also the value segment of altruism and public service with you when you're going to the service. How that has shaped your decision into getting to the service?
Since my father has been into the UP police, and we have seen him grow, we have seen him, learn in the journey. We have also seen him at times completely demotivated, and because he used to get regular transfers and we were back here at some other place, that he used to travel 40 kilometers every weekend to just see us, to make sure that everything that is required is there at home. So I think ye jab I saw in them that they are not ready to give up at the age, he's at the age he is, and he's traveling daily with that on his bike, motorcycle, some 25 kilometers daily, going and then coming back. And at night he's completely exhausted. Not even the energy, to just sit and talk for a while, because with age that capacity, physical capacity also declines. But I've never seen him give up. Even if it's 8 o'clock Republic Day parade, he'll be there at that time, right time. Even if it's COVID, beat any kind of festivals, we are waiting for him at home and he's on duty. But then that thing when we saw in him is what instilled. So he was in the service. Learning from him was very obvious. But then comes my mom, who was not into service. But then we all of one, जब we were in school, हम घर पे नहीं होते थे, तो she was idle at that time. She used to just open door and go back and search. Even if she would find small kids, she used to collect them, talk to them, teach them, ask them they're in which school. Then she used to even teach them like basic alphabets and all, because they were there, those small kids. Even if any animals are there, stray animals, she used to like make sure that in winters they have enough food, in summers there is water, etc. So these small things that we have seen, we have grown up, seeing her do, that made us realize that was one thing that she taught us, that it's not always to be in the duty to serve the nation. It's by basic small things that you'll be able to do. All right, you try for UPSC. If not, you'll always have an alternate path to work upon, an alternate path, to serve the nation in your basic minimum capacity. So that was there.
I mean, you must have also seen this kind of satisfaction that brings, that kind of altruism and that kind of service.
Yes.
And that would have been a major factor in
Yes.
you, trying to
Truly.
go through this journey
Truly.
and
Truly.
make it through.
Truly.
And that's, quite enlightening as well, because, I was watching a clip where your mother was speaking, and she just said that, we've done nothing. It's all God's grace. And I was quite, bewildered by that response, because, it was so humble, so deeply rooted in our values, and so, like grounded. It amazed me, because I could only imagine that, now that you are telling us about all this, we can only, sort of envision the kind of protection both of your parents have provided to you. And ma'am, talking about being a female, the life of a woman is anyway, it's sort of, embedded with a lot of challenges.
True.
And when it comes to UPSC aspirants, we have, well-documented, narrative of how aspirants struggle and what their challenges are. But then being a female UPSC aspirant, and you have prepared for a considerable time, significant time has been invested in preparation. You must have gone through a lot of phases, ups and downs, mentally as well as emotionally, and facing rejections, facing failures, and then, tackling them, tackling the societal expectations, the subtle biases, that are there, and the internalized doubts. So how did you face all of that? What was your experience from a gendered perspective? And what message would you like to give to our female aspirants?
My mother taught this thing to us very early on in life, that look at a bigger power always. So if you fail, you'll always have that thing, Bhagwan jo karte hain, अच्छे के लिए करते हैं. And if you succeed, you'll always think that it was not you, it was somebody else who brought you there. So that will always keep that thing in you. So I remember having those multiple failures. I was the one who always runs to God for everything. So we just had that thing in mind, that no matter what is happening, it's happening for some purpose. I might be not that suitable for the service. I was not that ready last year, maybe that's why I didn't get through. But the simple thing she basically taught us. Being a female, I think we have so many, health related challenges when we are into the preparation. We have so many mental health related issues that we go through. Yeah. Then all of that did hamper my preparation also. I was also getting impacted by that. But in the end, when you look at the larger picture, that what is all of this for? When you know that, when you understand the purpose, why are you doing it? I think that keeps you going. but that can never be your own single calling. It could not have been just my decision that I want to do that. The support system that works behind is more important. And for that, as I explained, my mom, my dad, like, who have always been there, that you do what you want to do and we just stand by you. Your decision is something we respect. So when you get that kind of support, that okay, I have that power of decision making, I decide how many attempts I want to give, nobody's asking me, nobody's saying me to stop or when to start. So all of that creates a kind of impact on your brain, and it can help you to keep going. So that was one thing, I think, that basically, despite those rock bottoms that I've hit during the preparation, I always had that ability to rise back.
Quite true, ma'am. As you said, deriving meaning from even the low phases you're having in your life. So that whole, meaning making process, that what does this thing mean or signify to me? So if I'm not getting through, maybe this is the reason why,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll get through for multiple other reasons as well in the future. So you believed in spiritual, energy as well, where you sought relief and reprieve from all those emotional burnout and mental challenges that any aspirant faces, for that matter. So that is definitely very insightful, ma'am. And also talking about a little bit specifically into the burnout challenges that aspirants face. The study table is a very sacred space for all of us, but then it's also a very lonely space.
Yes.
It can get very lonely because the preparation is such that we have to isolate ourselves from a lot of things that usually people our age enjoy, socializing a lot and gathering and all that, because it does ultimately prove as a distraction. So how did you tackle that loneliness, and also if you had to face those distractions, how did you deal with them?
If we talk about UPSC, there are certain myths as well. First thing, that you need to be on your table for 12 to 15 hours. That's practically not possible. As you mentioned about burnout, human brain has a capacity to retain things and to concentrate. We are not machines that, they keep feeding in the data and we work like that. Second thing is that everything in and around is distraction, and just separate yourself from that. Talking about myself, I was never a very social child. I was always very introverted. I have one or two friends I know, and then it was all about my family and siblings. So I never faced that distraction ki, I have to cut on my social life. It was never there actually. Talking about social media also, initially I was not on social media. I joined it during the COVID times when, it was all there. So I was just to, experience what it is like. So having a discipline in your mind is very important, and taking that regular break. So it's not that I was not using social media, it was not that I was not going out or I was not spending time with family. All of that was there, but in a very limited amount. Like if we say in fitness, there's a concept, what you eat is not important, the portion size is more important. Even you can go for that, just have a limited of it. So same happens in UPSC. You can go use social media, meet friends, do everything, but that limit that, okay, after every 15 days I'm just doing it. For half day I took a break. So wo ek, pattern that I maintain, that all right, if I'm studying for 7-8 days straight, there'll be a day where I'll be just light upon myself, do basic current affairs, thoda newspaper pad liya, spend time with family or watch some movie or something. So wo ek important factor tha. I used to make sure that after every 10-20 days I'm taking that breaks, so that my brain is also at rest and is relaxed, because it has been a really long journey for me.
True, ma'am. Very true. So to break the monotony, keep on taking breaks in between. Give yourself the emotional release that everyone needs, and get in touch with family, friends, connect with people. Human interaction is important, and give yourself, a few days of just being,
that is very
Yeah.
important. Like last year when results came, I remember there were 2 months for my next prelims, and I failed. I was out of the list. And I remember being crying, and then I'm thinking I should not cry, I should study. But when you're emotionally in a certain stage, you cannot, focus on anything else. So what I used to do is to cry also and study also. I think effectively I was doing nothing. But then that is what it is, that you give your body that, time to recover from those mental and physical stress that you're going through. And it is really, really important. So be it crying, be it screaming, be it talking to your parents, anything that basically relieves you is something you should give space for.
Very true, ma'am. You have highlighted a very important aspect of mental health, which is emotional catharsis, and accepting that we cannot be strong all the time, and that it's very important to be weak so that we can be strong when it matters. Right? So thank you, ma'am.
One more thing which you mentioned was that, okay, you used to take breaks and you used to, do something to recharge yourself.
Yes.
UPSC as a journey is very romanticized, and you would see montages in movies and in series where, book flipping, burning the midnight oil and just grinding through it,
Yes, yes.
sipping coffee and just reading and studying. And then in those movies, it is a 1 minute montage.
Yes.
It looks very romantic, enticing, and very beautiful, but in real life, it stretches to 2 years, 3 years, 4 years
True.
of the same monotonous grind where you are just going through the same stuff. Lakshmikant is not new anymore. Environment books are not new anymore. Optional notes are not new anymore. They are torn on the edges. You have to sit through the same thing.
Yes.
Current affairs also, after a point
of time, it gets
become redundant, right?
True.
So at that monotony, you have to somehow balance it out with some markers. And in this UPSC journey, what is the funny part? That you don't have any external markers. The only marker that you have is exam day and you get the result.
Yes.
Throughout the year, you don't have any tangible external markers to track yourself. How did you make markers for yourself so that it doesn't become a haywire lost cause? And how did you collect that kind of, strength also, resilience also, to kind of stick through those markers and avoid the noise and confusion, which is the part of this preparation?
I think in this, rankers have played a very important role because I was at home only. I used to watch their videos as well. So some of them were very clear in saying, I remember Utkarsh Dwivedi sir, who is a IAS of 2020 batch. He said a statement where he mentioned that 10 hours for a year and your 10 years are sorted. So when I heard that okay, 10 hours per day for a year, if you're spending on your table very properly, very religiously, in a disciplined manner, 10 years ahead are sorted for you. So I realized that, okay, am I planning for 10 years of toil, or I need just 1 year of toil for 10 hours? So these are certain statements that have always stick to me. Second thing, I used to be very clear in creating a chart. I was never that person जिसको time matter कर रहा है. I was a person जिसको targets matter कर रहे हैं. So I used to create that today I'll be doing these topics of Lakshmikant. I know it's getting boring. I know it's getting again redundant. I have done it multiple times. But then every time I used to try different methods of revising. At times I'm using active recall. At times I'm creating flow charts. So this used to keep me engaged also in that. And this also made sure that if suppose, what if, say something you're reading passively, that might not get into your, that subconscious very easily. But when you're doing the active recall thing, that you might recall it then. So you realize, okay, this was also a point that I was missing. So different methods of revision I have always experimented with, and I always made sure that whatever is mentioned on my slot for the day, it's done. So these are certain things that I ensured that I follow till the D-day before my exams.
So these are two very important things that you have said. First, that you need to make your own markers in terms of your to-do list and in terms of your tracker charts.
Yes.
Second thing, of course, it will become monotonous and you need to find new study techniques.
Yes.
Probably join a study group with
Yes.
study with friends,
Yes.
or maybe use different techniques using audio-visual aids to
Yeah.
kind of concise things and kind of
Yes.
learn it. Now there are new AI tools which can help you ask questions. You can
Yes.
just upload your book in
Yes.
PDF form and it can make out MCQs out of that, and it can help you revise the whole stuff with
True.
really nicely through active recall. So one more thing which is very important is that you need to take track of your mental health also. You are taking track of your these markers, your to-do list, your tests and everything, but you need to take track of your mental health also. So what were your markers in terms of mental health, which you observed and you were like, okay, let me not just brush it under the rug. It is the time for me to take a break. What were those mental health markers for you?
For me, it used to be, when one morning you're waking up and you feel everything is gloomy around you. You think you are stuck somewhere. You start looking at social media and you're not crying because you're watching your friends doing something really good in life. So when these things started happening with me, I realized it is that time that I need some kind of refreshment, some kind of break from UPSC. So I used to do what? Like, it can be meditation for somebody. For me, it was spirituality. I used to run to God. So I'm spending my time listening to bhajans or just talking to God or talking to my parents. I like writing a lot. So I used to write down my emotions very much. I have written some really bad pages, which if I read today, I turn back, it feels like, okay, this was also a stage I was in at times. Then I've written some really good pages. If suppose I scored 110, 120 in my prelims test at home, I was very happy to write things. So there were certain ways in which when I'm thinking that it is like getting heavy on me, I used to stop there, take some time out. There have also been days where 2-3 days at a stretch I did not study at all because I was not in that mental state to go through. So I think knowing yourself is really important in this preparation. There can be different markers for different people, and that's what you need to keep a track on.
You have emphasized on spirituality, and as a psychology student, I believe that there are a lot of questions, if God exists or not.
Yes.
But the sole thing is, okay, if believing in that kind of existence is helping your self-esteem,
Yes.
is helping your self-efficacy, good. Go with the idea. Why do you have to rationalize it
Everything.
to a lot of extent?
So, ma'am, just to ask you one question that I think has been going on in my mind since quite some time. Being a female IAS officer and being a woman in this field, just because obviously you're going to go into training and it's going to be a very, exciting journey for you. Just wanted to ask that, how do you envision the kind of officer you want to become, not in terms of function, but, in terms of presence. And how would you want that to send a message to the society as well?
Till date, civil servants were all on papers. Like, I've theoretically read about them. I've just read their roles, seen some of them. But practicality is yet to be seen. What are the responsibilities? What are the functions? What are the restraints that we must have? We cannot go all in. We can, there are certain things yet to be seen. But as I always seen my mother, I think one thing I would make sure is that I'm approachable. I'm approachable to people in need. And I have that demeanor where people find it comfortable to share things, that people find it comfortable that, okay, if she's there, she'll listen. So that kind of something, presence I would like to create where people are comfortable in, being themselves or sharing things with me.
I think, ma'am, that's not going to be tough because I think we're a testament to that. You've made us feel very comfortable and you're very, very approachable. And yes, Balindra will.
You are an embodiment of 3 code words, and those are struggle, strive, and smile.
Thank you.
And this is something that Psynaree also believes in. Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so
Thank you very much for having this kind of conversation with us. It was really insightful. We could understand what goes on in the life of an UPSC aspirant before the results come, before the glamour comes, before the success comes, and in the days of struggle.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Keep watching us for more stories like this. We will keep bringing to you more stories of struggle, of empowerment, and of success. Thank you.
Thank you.